I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News. Here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending January the 27th, where your feeder cattle prices just keep getting higher every week. This week they were firm to $5 higher and mostly $2 to $5 higher across the nation, especially in the southeast where they were mostly $3 to $5 higher, but higher prices all over the board, and just hard to know how much higher these things are going to go. We're not sure at this point whether we're climbing a plateau or a mountain peak. I guess we'll know when we get to the top whether we start back down or kind of flatten out, but it looks like we've got enough fundamental support to kind of hold this thing together. A lot of short yearling cattle coming into the market this week. Those cattle, just in the next several weeks would be a year old, but they've been, most of them, long time weaned, and just really performed well because we've had such a mild winter. It's unbelievably mild, hardly any snow in lots of places. I know here in Kansas City, or shortly south of here in Kansas City, the least amount of snow they've ever had in a winter time was near 4.5 inches, and they have not even measured a half an inch of snow so far this year. So it's just unbelievably mild winter, and these cattle have really done well. They're coming in heavier than normal, and those short yearling cattle went from 6.5 to 8.5, really got a good condition on them, and more like true yearlings, and we haven't had any true yearlings really for a few months, so these buyers really lapping those up, and that's where our highest gains were seen. But a lot of buying of grass cattle too, and some of these lighter short yearling cattle that got a lot of condition to them, they're going to probably hold those cattle on as cheap a feed as they can until they can get on some old grass and wait for that new grass to come. Shoot, we're still 60 to 90 days out on grass, and guys are in full bloom buying these grass calves and these short yearling cattle with a grass kind of condition to them. And as aggressive as these grass buyers are, most of them would tell you that they would be even more aggressive if they knew that this winter was going to continue to be as mild as it's been. But afraid to get too many of these things stacked up, and they're just kind of holding them. They're not really pouring the feed to them that much, but just kind of holding these cattle. If they knew they weren't going to get a big 1 or 2 foot snow land on them between now and March, then they might get them more aggressive. But it's pretty darn aggressive already. We just don't expect a whole lot of those cattle to be available once grass time gets here, and so they're feeding those cattle. And feeding the cattle costs a lot, whether you're backgrounding the cattle, holding them for grass, or you got them on feed. But if you look at it at this point, that the cattle are worth so much more, and the feed hasn't changed all that much. Comparatively, the feed is not costing as much as it has a lot of times in the past. But we did have a big cattle inventory, semi-annual cattle inventory report come out this Friday. It was bullish. Most analysts were expecting about a 1.6% drop in all cattle inventory, and indeed it come out a full 2%, just a smidge over 2% drop in the total cattle inventory. Just 90.8 million head of cattle in the United States, the lowest number of total cattle in the United States since 1952. Your beef cow numbers, just beef cows that have already had a calf, down 3%. And for once, one of these reports come in that actually makes sense. The 2011 beef cow slaughter, just in comparison to other years, how many of those drought cows sold, and other places too, but the 2011 beef cow harvest was 8.2% more than the previous 3-year average. It was 13.7% more than the previous 5-year average, and 21.7 more beef cows killed in 2011 than the previous 10-year average. So this really makes sense, and we've got a whole lot less cows. You look at those southern plains areas where they had the bad drought there last summer. Texas beef cows down over 13% from the same time a year ago. Oklahoma beef cows down over 14% from the same year ago, which puts my newly adopted state of Missouri back at #2 beef cow state in the United States. As you would think, they've got a huge amount of demand for these replacement quality heifers, and guys are just breaking the bank on them in Bassett, Nebraska at the regular feeder cattle auction. Just those heifers they thought were had the quality deemed to keep back. Had over 400 replacement quality heifers that went back somewhere to be bred. The average weight on those over 400 head was 692 pounds at 183.59, which adds up to just over $1,270 a head for an open heifer weighing just under 700 pounds. Up the road, Valentine, Nebraska, they had the highest quotes on steers this week. 2 loads of 650-pound steers. Now, I will grant they were drug-free, NHTC, source and age verified, but 2 loads of steers weighing 650 pounds, $187.75. Another load of steers weighed 730 pounds, $176.50. These prices are just get crazier every week. But you look at the regional weighted averages this week out of the north central states. 600 to 700 pound steer this week cost you $167.01 compared to $165.04 last week and $134.49 a year ago. In the south central states, 6-weight steer cost you $159.42 this week compared to $156.69 last week and $130.27 a year ago. And a 6-weight steer in the southeast this week cost you $149.35 compared to $144.01 last week, $117.83 a year ago. It's late Friday. They still haven't traded any fat cattle. These packers claim that they're losing a lot of money on every head that they kill. They pulled back their change speeds, dropped their bids, not seeing any trade what to speak of here, and it's late Friday afternoon. Be interesting to see if they trade over the weekend or late Friday night. If you want more market information, check out our website, marketnews.usda.gov. From the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri. We'll talk to you next week.